Carl Hartmann knows how to grow and scale businesses from scratch. In fact, he's one of Australia's leading serial entrepreneurs, having taken his first idea to over 80,000 users, 3 billion transactions, and $55 million in funding. Today, he shares his top 5 tips for growing and scaling your business. It's a wheelin' dealin' episode 463 of the award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of marketing madness. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner who is well and truly ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. But if that's not enough and you're itching to fast track your marketing and your business growth, then let's get personal with a one-on-one coaching session that you can book with me over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Big episode today. We meet up with one of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs in Carl Hartmann, who, besides sharing the ups and downs of his entrepreneurial journey, shares his top 5 tips to scale your business. Yeah, your business. Personally yours. A highly motivated listener who, I love this, who leaves for work 30 minutes early each morning to listen to this show. He's got to get a life, that boy. Wins over $1,000 worth of prizes in this week's Monster Prize Draw. And I've got some really good news about next week's guest who's making a mozza, having invented something recently that you would swear should have been invented like 100 years ago. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Righto, let's get stuck into today's special guest. Carl Hartmann is a prominent multi-award-winning Australian entrepreneur, best known for his work as the co-founder and CEO of Temando, potato, which he took from an idea to one of Australia's largest technology companies. It's an incredible story. Having exited Temando in 2017, Carl now spends his time looking for the next big thing, investing in companies that make him sit up and take notice. And he talks about what he looks for when looking for the next big thing. In fact, he's the co-founder of Lyre's non-alcoholic spirits. Remember we interviewed founder Mark Livings a couple of weeks ago? Well, Carl's a part of that. So strap in, because he is about to share the ups and downs of an incredible entrepreneurial journey so far and give us his top 5 tips on how to scale a business just like yours. And every now and then, I've got to say, he bamboozles me with some tech talk that's way, way, way above my head. But that's all right. You'll get it. So without further ado, let's meet serial entrepreneur Carl Hartmann. Carl Hartmann, welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Now, amongst other business titles, I see you are the Adjunct Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the University of Queensland. So does that make you like a modern-day Dumbledore?
I definitely don't have any magic powers, no. But, perhaps my superpower is like, commercial models and, helping inspiring students. I seem to be pretty good at that. But
What is an adjunct professor?
so this is a random story. Often, as you get later in your career and you've kicked a few goals, it's not uncommon for universities to reach out to alumni that might have some interesting stories from the real world to tell. So I think the technical way is when it says adjunct, it means you can't be paid.
Okay, right.
But no, it's like an honorary title. So
you sit alongside the professor that is getting paid.
It's actually the same academic rank as a paid professor. It's basically you've earned it through life merit versus academic study and research.
When you were asked to be it, did you hesitate?
No, because look, I'd gone and done a couple of sort of guest lectures, and the feedback was pretty positive. And I think they tried to find a way to get you back involved in the community, and obviously giving someone a title that recognises what they've done, because that helps command the respect from students
Sure.
and things like that.
So you say, and I don't want you to be humble in this interview. I know humility is just not part of your shtick, so just open up. You say you're great at inspiring young people who are coming through. How? Why do you think that?
No, I'll put that in my comment in context. When I started my entrepreneurial journey, to be honest, there wasn't much here in Queensland. There was no venture capital, there was, no accelerators, there was no, mentoring structures.
This last year?
No, this is going back, 2006 to 2008 when I started to sort of explore things. So there wasn't even LinkedIn really. I think that was maybe launched, but definitely no one was using it. So really, the only way you could, start was hard work and hustle. So I remember back then literally getting the BRW fast growing list one day and just started ringing people and coming up with all sorts of charades of, sometimes I was pretending to return their call. Other times it was,
I like that one.
He knows who this is about. And would you believe about 50% of the people I called actually felt the thing was pretty funny and gave me time.
Yeah.
And I always tried to buy them lunch.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's, when you're starting out, you have no idea. So I figured try to find the people that are actually doing it would be a good way to learn.
What were you looking for from those calls?
Just pick their brain. And this is day one for me. And I hadn't had any real sort of entrepreneurial business experience. In some cases, it was questions like, how do you structure an employee share plan? In other cases, it might be like, how did you raise money, and when did you raise money, and how did you value the business? All these things that get way easier as you get on in your career are very difficult to do. At the early stage.
You're out there hustling and asking.
Yeah.
Do you think, entrepreneur did used to be a dirty word. It's almost like only the last decade, maybe two, that it's become kind of de rigueur.
Yeah.
Do you think it's now overused?
No, I think an entrepreneur is a pretty big spectrum, right?
It's very big.
I think if most people have the potential to be an entrepreneur, and there's probably some type of entrepreneurial spectrum, right? Where
no doubt,
there's ones that will take, and it's probably linked to risk as well. I mean, how much risk are you willing to take? Because
what is an entrepreneur?
Look, I think I like this. The saying that if you give an entrepreneur 2 rocks and a piece of wood, they'll build you an oven. Everyone else probably just sees some rocks and wood.
Yeah, I like that.
So look, I think it's the ability to create something out of nothing. You give someone the building blocks and they can literally create industries around ideas in some cases.
Are they risk takers?
Yeah, like it comes with the territory. So I think going back to your earlier question, what's really needed in any entrepreneurial ecosystem is, you can't sort of understate the knowledge of those that have done it before. And I can safely say from my career, if those people early in my career didn't give time, I would have not have any sad success. I would have failed miserably because sometimes it's just, you just don't know what you don't know, right? So to me, that helped immensely. And I said to myself at the time, if I ever had any sort of privilege of success, I just think there's a real obligation to pay that forward. So I think, to cover off the whole university arc, when I was asked, I was like, actually, I think this is a really good forum in order to say, here's a brain download of everything I learned. And it's just about, to be honest, it's just about as much as about the mistakes as it is the successes.
No doubt.
I've definitely learnt more from mistakes than I have success. But
so Carl, you're ringing around, and we'll talk about those very shortly, but you're ringing around, you're asking people just a whole lot of questions about running a business, identifying an idea, how do you launch something, everything, employee payroll, share schemes, everything.
100%.
At that point, do you have a business idea?
Yeah. So at this point, this is when I was launching Temando, and look, some of the people that
what was Temando? Explain to me.
Yeah. So my first startup was an e-commerce logistics SaaS business called Temando. To date, it's been one of the larger ones to come out of Queensland. And basically, if you've bought something online, you've got to the checkout, you've seen a whole bunch of delivery options. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day free shipping. That doesn't happen by magic. There's quite a lot of science that goes into that, and essentially built a platform that helped figure that out for the retailers. And if they're offering things like free shipping, make sure it's profitable. and if they're offering premium delivery experiences, making sure it's possible. Because there's nothing worse than promising someone, a 3-hour delivery, and it comes in 2 days. You've probably lost that customer for life.
So Temando was a white label kind of bit of technology that sat behind those websites.
So
e-commerce site.
Yeah, I mean it's not a branded thing in a retailer's cart. It's just sort of like a payment gateway in a way, where it's behind the scenes making things happen, but not really. I guess a consumer. It's a B2B play versus a consumer facing sort of product.
Okay, because we had James Chin-Moody on the show a couple of weeks ago from Sendle.
Yeah.
So he's a consumer facing.
Yeah. So we actually started with a similar model, or more so you could say Sendle was inspired by Temando because we were, we came definitely first, but we actually pivoted away from that because, you can get a lot of growth pretty early on. But if you want to go for bigger customers, and that was sort of we were very good at that at the enterprise side of the market. So increasingly, as we looked to go further up the value chain, we ended up being completely focused on software. But the roots of the business was actually we started with small businesses and being a bit of a comparison site. But where we kind of ended up, it was enterprise SaaS. So I think as we did that, it sort of paved way for others that wanted to focus on that particular niche, like Sendle, and they've done really well.
Temando was a huge success for you, Carl. Where did it get to in the end? You're no longer involved?
No. So I exited in 2017.
Yeah.
So basically, I guess
give us a sense. Scope it out. Come on.
Entrepreneurial story was, we did a $1 million seed, we did a 5 Series A, a 50 Series B, and then exited by way of a trade sale to a listed strategic out of France in 2017.
I have no idea what you just said there, but it sounded really impressive.
Hopefully your listeners will. But yeah, so often when people talk about series, it's just the order in which capital comes.
Right.
We raised capital at a time where there wasn't really much venture capital, and again, it was hard work and hustle that got there. Our early investors, some of them were the people I had literally picked up the phone to and asked for advice, and some of them later on did contribute to our sort of first sort of structured round. And so forth. But
Temando, the sale of exiting of Temando has allowed you now to really become a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah. I tried doing nothing for a little bit.
For how long?
That didn't even last 12 weeks, to be honest.
But it'd be fair to say your attention span is. How would you measure your attention span? Is there a unit you would have come up with a unit?
Not like
it's a small unit.
No, to be honest, it depends what's needed.
Right.
I can be at an absolute minute level of detail when needed.
Really,
but. To be honest, I think my value to people is probably, strategic thinking outside the box.
When I first met you, I was emceeing a job for Shortlister, which we'll talk about shortly, another one of your investments. And it was the first job, I think it was in Brisbane. You were sitting in the front row. I think I hadn't met you prior to it. Maybe I just said hello, but you're sitting there and you're on your phone. I'm thinking, this guy's either not interested in the startup that he's about to launch or he has a very short attention span. It turned out you were actually taking notes for the speech you were going to make at the end, but I get it.
Well, Tim, if I'm doing a wrap-up, I should probably take a few of the gems that our fantastic panellists gave us that
Correct. time. 12 weeks of doing that. What did you do?
Look, to be honest,
did you just rub your hands together and go, I've got a whole lot of dough now, I'm just going to live the life. This is going to be like the Queensland's answer to Entourage.
Well, no, because I was living in San Francisco, and part of that was, sort of had decided post-exit was going to sort of pack up and come back to Australia. Basically that 12 weeks was largely, just, winding down and starting to think about, where I'm going to live in Australia and so forth. And, cause, it was a great experience living and working in the US for a period of time. But, what's the Australian saying? The grass isn't always greener when you have to mow someone else's yard. Like, certainly, spending a bit of time in the US, it's an amazing country with lots of opportunity, but, there's a lot of things you come back to Australia appreciating, things like healthcare and safety.
Yes.
It almost seems we take it for granted, and then you see how it can be in other places, and you're like, you know what, I'm never going to complain about Medicare again.
Yeah, fair enough. Carl, what changed for you when you came into a whole lot of dough after exiting Temando?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is you start to think about what other problems do you want to solve. If I reflect on my Temando experience, the biggest challenge, honestly, was growing and scaling around people. So, and at different stages, it's different challenges. So, the first 50 people, you're probably, you put a job out on Seek, you'll get 100 resumes, you read them over the weekend, and through luck or skill, you hopefully find someone that's going to be a fit. And, there's probably a degree of founder's intuition that you hopefully get it right more often than not, but sometimes you get it spectacularly wrong. And I'll be honest, I made a couple of really bad hires that, was quite, I'll say just, could have had a really dire impact to the business. But, you learn from those and go, okay, what did I do wrong and how could I have done it better? So there was another person I went to university with had pitched me an idea about, using data and science to basically, optimize hiring. And I was like, oh, geez, I wish that existed the last sort of 10 years of my career. And then as I spoke to other CEOs, they were like, this needs to exist. And, everyone's got iterations of the problem, and sometimes they don't get enough candidates. So they get like 20 through the door and they have a 2-day window and speed to hire problem. So if they don't jump on that then and there, they kind of miss that, that hire because they're in so much in demand, they get scooped up by someone
So you've
else.
solved this problem?
Or solving. It's
solving.
It's I guess an evolving space. But I think when we coined Shortlisted, the idea was, if we could use data science and AI to basically match skills, qualification, and culture, with a big emphasis on the culture, because if you think about when someone reads a resume, you can make an inference, rightly or wrongly, about how they might be a fit with their skills and their qualifications. What's not on a resume is the soft skills, someone's personality. And it's funny because we often will hire for skills and qualifications, but we'll fire for culture. So, and then you think about, I think about some, one example is there was a guy I hired in the US, and previously before working with us, he came from the Coast Guard, but he had such a high emotional intelligence. He presented so well. He was hungry. He was junior and definitely needed to invest in training, but he ended up becoming, one of our best sales guys, and now he's actually working for Afterpay over there.
No.
And, and he's done exceptionally well there as well. So,
So you basically, just to wrap that's Shortlisted. That's one of your new investments. You're a co-founder of that business.
Co-founder and chairman, that's right.
And chairman. So upon selling, just exiting Temando, you did kind of, I imagine, get pitched a lot. I was talking to Andrew Banks about this a few weeks ago, and he too, I'm surprised he only gets, he said 3 or 4 pitches a week. I would have thought it'd be a whole lot more. But is that what started to happen to you when it's like, Carl's a guy who can make things happen?
I think it's a combination of some people pitch you, and sometimes, you meet founders and you're like, oh, they're really investable people. And,
right.
I think it's, for me, when I make an investment, it's probably 50% the founder,
yes,
and 50% the idea. And digging on the idea, it's about, what's the addressable, how big's the addressable market? What's the unit economics of the business? Is there some evidence that, they can meet the claim? So if you might say, hey, well, potentially I can sell a billion widgets, and if we can make $10 a widget, we can make $10 billion. At the end of the day, if you can't even convince one person to buy a widget, well, it's, it might be a nice thesis, but it may not be able to be proven.
Yeah.
So a combination, sometimes it's people pitching, sometimes it's like randomly I get involved in things, I might be trying to contact them as a customer. Like I invested in a Swedish electric wakeboard company, literally because I saw the thing, well, my mum sent it to me. She's saying, oh, you might be interested in one of these. And I contacted them about buying one. And, like any sort of expensive toy purchase, you want to try it before you buy it. And they're like, oh, there's none in Australia, but if you happen to be in Europe, you could, come to our office and try one. And then just as luck had it, like I was going to London the following week, I said, yeah, cool. I'll just get a stopover in Sweden. I'll get off in Copenhagen. I'll catch the train across. Apparently it's 40 minutes. Got to love Europe with high speed transport. And rode one and said, well, if I can and I said, oh, how cold's it going to be? And they're like, oh, not that cold. All the ice has melted. And I was like, so it was, in fairness, it was 6 degrees. I wore a dry suit with thermals underneath. It was so cold it hurt my bones. But if I could have fun in freezing cold water, in the nice warm water of Noosa, it's going to be a hell of a lot more fun.
Yeah. So that's another little business you got?
Yeah, so that was, one that I started spending time with the founders. I just liked the business.
So your criteria really is for investing is either you like the founders and you can see how an investable founder, as you talk about, whether there's a market for it and they can actually deliver on what they're promising.
I've got to believe in it too. I've got to believe in the product. I've got to be able to evangelize it and add value.
Yes.
So in this case, I love water sports. I grew up wakeboarding. You can't always, like, if you want to go wakeboarding, it's a 3-person activity, right?
Yes.
You can't just do that on a moment's notice in the morning when you wake up and go, oh, it's warm and there's no wind, let's go.
Yeah.
So being able to, take yourself skiing, I thought that's a cool thesis.
Are you a guy who operates from a gut feeling? I mean, I imagine you would really analyse things and want to see the data and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. If you asked me that question 10 years ago, it would have been 100% gut. I definitely use a lot more data these days.
Yeah.
I've done those like Myers-Briggs tests, and I was once a very hard ENFJ, and now I'm an ENTJ. So the difference, the F means feeling, the T means thinking. And
nice.
I think I definitely need data to support my intuition. But if I had to make a call, I'll generally go with gut.
You've had a great career. So if I want to get to talking about the 5 learnings on how to grow and scale a business, we've got a lot of small business owners listening, Carl. Before we do that, highest point of your career, like that one moment where you have punched the air so hard, it hurt, and that low point where you've just shook your head and you've gone, maybe I'm better off as an employee.
So look, I think some of the high points, one of the things I got a lot of value from, and it's good to get, I guess, social proof, is I went through the IBM Global Entrepreneur of the Year program, and that's it's sort of a global search. You pitch within your country, then within a region, and I got to runner up with that globally.
Nice.
So there was some regional finals here in Australia, then I guess we're in the rest of the world category, Australia. So that those semi-finals were in Istanbul, and then the grand finals in San Francisco. I mean, that was just cool because going through that program in multiple countries, the judges and the mentors are a combination of entrepreneurs, investors, and academics.
Yeah,
and you get such interesting insights into your business and how to pitch it. Sometimes, particularly, Turkey was interesting because we were pitching to a whole bunch of mentors that English wasn't their first language, and I tell you what, you learn how to sharpen that up real quick in those envivroments. So
no doubt.
That was definitely.
So was then the low point of your career coming second?
Well, yes, that was definitely one where we didn't use any IBM tech, and you're like,
yeah, right,
is this legit? But I thought my pitch was pretty bloody good. But,
as Will Ferrell's character says in what is it, Talladega Nights? I think he says, if you're not first, you're last. So
Yeah, 100%. But
second's pretty good.
I tell you what, and history is actually filled with examples of second movers that end up winning. So think about this. I mean, when I was in university, the coolest phone was the Nokia with the blue screen.
Yes,
right. Nokia was one of the most valuable companies in the world, like a darling stock, 70-something% market share. A couple of years later, this thing called the iPhone came out, and everything changed. And that was probably the moment where Apple just really started to skyrocket. Or going back further, when I was in high school, there was this search engine called Alta Vista. Do you remember Alta Vista?
I do remember Alta Vista, yes.
And it was like Russian roulette of search. You just type it in. Sometimes you get something you shouldn't see. Other times, it's something completely irrelevant. Yep. Other times, it's actually what you wanted to see. But then Google came out. And if you know the Google story, there was Yahoo passed on buying it, all these sort of things. And, now you've got some of these examples, and they're $1 trillion companies. So it's amazing to see that it's not always the first mover that wins.
Well, I imagine the first mover often kind of is paving the way and has to incur the mistakes and, the pitfalls.
Yeah.
Whereas second time round...
There's a great saying that says it's, the first mover creates the roads that get paved over in the process.
I love it. Lowest point? Maybe there's not one.
No, there definitely are. You just try to think what's the most relevant one for listeners. Look, probably, one that I reflect upon a lot was I made a really bad hire in my Temando story. I was a senior executive, looked amazing on paper. It was the classic, looks right, but weekend, something just didn't feel right. It was... you're like, I don't think this is going to work out. And I went to my board and they're like, Carl, you can be impulsive. Maybe just give it a bit of time. 3 months later, we just absolutely knew it was not the right fit. So
nearly brought the company down.
Yeah. It was that dryer, and created a bit of an us versus them cultural divide. When you're a sort of a sub 100-person company, that's a pretty hard thing to deal with. But like anything, you learn from your lesson, and to be honest, that was part of the inspiration for Shortlister. I
should say too, last week's or 2 weeks ago was Mark Livings from Lyre, which you are a co-founder of.
That's right.
What attracted? I mean, Mark, I met Mark at one of your events. Clearly, what a character! He knows branding and marketing backwards. He's charismatic. He's completely believes in Lyre. What did you love about Lyre?
Yeah, so look, so when I came back to Australia, I joined Mark's board at Brandlink, which is one of Mark's other businesses. Ironically, I actually co-founded that one with him as well. It started off to be a joint venture between Temando and his agency at the time, Kinetic. But my board said, "Oh, that's a distraction, Carl." And now it's one of the fastest growing businesses, in Australia in its own right. But one sort of meeting, he had some samples on the boardroom table, and he's like, "Try this," and I was like, "Wow, that tastes like a Jack Daniel's." And he's like, "Yeah, it's non-alcoholic," and I was like, "No." And then I tried the gin, and I was like, "Wow, can we make a gin and tonic?" And we did, and I was like, this is next level. And then I guess he started giving me some of the background about how, lots of millennials are making healthier choices. You've got people that have grown up over time, and now they've, they drink a lot less in their more mature years. Mm-hmm. And he gave me the background and how he was sort of telling a lot of his customers of Brandlink, saying, "Hey, this non-alcoholics is going to be a massive trend." And not everyone was sort of taking it that seriously. And I reflected on my own journey, and there was one year I travelled 500,000 miles. I did 230 days of travel, and you go from conference to social event, and honestly, the booze, you pack on quite a bit of weight.
No doubt.
And, you get to a point and you go, I just can't keep doing that. And also some of the places where, there is like it's intertwined with the socialization. So places like London, I mean, I go there and people want to have 4 pints in a row every night. I just physically can't do it. So for me, it's like I know my limits, and often I'll just drink a water, but you get the weird looks, and
love it.
There's only so much water you can drink in a night too, right? So I guess
so therefore Lyre is a winner.
Yeah, so I just thought, I've had millennials that work for me. I know people up here in Noosa that, just don't drink anymore because, they're making healthy lifestyle choices. I see different, it goes back to that addressable market thing, right?
Yes.
Where you can see the addressable market is big and growing. My own personal circumstances is like, hey, if I had an alternative, I would definitely consume this product. So again, I can evangelize it. So I see immense opportunities for Lyre.
Now, Carl, top 5 learnings on how to grow and scale a business. I reckon we'd all love to hear what you have to say in that regard. So,
top 5.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I might steal some from my lectures because they're it's front of mind. So, look, first thing I always say is focus, right? The main reason for focus is, particularly when you're a first-time founder, everything is new and exciting. You'll go and speak to 100 different people. You get 100 pieces of advice. Like, opportunities present itself and want to pull you in different ways. So I think one of the really important factors of being an entrepreneur is being able to see the tree from the forest. So, take everything with a grain of salt, make a decision, lock it in. And being able to sort of put the distractions. It's a lot easier said than done. It does get easier with experience.
Is there any tip on being focused? Just being brutal and actually saying, I mean, many business owners find it hard to say no to opportunities. Learning to say no.
No's are powerful. Look, there's probably 3 or 4 different strategies, but, one of the easiest way is just making a little matrix and, basically understand its importance, right? And is it something that you have to do? So, if it's important and it's urgent, right, do it now. That's something you got to do. If it's important and it's not urgent, you might be able to put it on the back burner or delegate it. So it's just, I guess, whatever is the right mechanism, it's probably just putting the right, decision matrix and governance around your time and finding the way to, put things in the right boxes. So you got to avoid rabbit holes because there's certain things that can just actually, let's make that the second one, because there's certain things that can just become complete time sinks, right?
Yep.
So your ability to not get sucked into some of these things becomes really important. And often you're in a meeting and you can just know that it's just consuming the conversation and it's not actually about the whole point of the meeting in the first place. So you just got to be able to be a grown up and say, great topic, park that, let's just explore this separately and not go down that rabbit hole.
Love it. Yeah. I find that with interviews where you go off on a conversation, which is kind of interesting, but it's not what we're here to do. So it's kind of getting back online. Speaking of getting back online, number 3.
Number 3, I think this is it's probably another iteration of focus, but probably a bit more tactical. I call it don't fight the war on too many fronts. So, again, the world can be your oyster. You can have a big blue ocean of opportunity. At the end of the day, you need to be very tactical in terms of where you go to market, and because you've all got limited resources. So often when I see businesses come into trouble, they might be trying to go to market with a very labor-intensive model in 5 or 6 countries at once. I mean, you just simply don't have enough bullets in that sort of scenario, to continue with the analogy. From a product, if you're a technology company, you might have 5 ideas. You've got enough resources to build one. Now, if you tried to split your development capacity and try and, say, build 2 or 3 things in parallel, chances are you're probably going to know all of those are going to be substandard. You're better off just doing one extremely well, make it polished, moved on to the next thing.
Talk about this a lot on this show, where one can be a dangerous number in business, but one can also be an incredibly important number in business. Whereas you focus on that. So you would subscribe to doing one thing well, as opposed to spreading your
many things horribly. Absolutely, yeah. And look, I think probably the best example I can give listeners is something like the Atlassian story. I mean, they started with Jira. That was product one. And then
what's Atlassian?
Atlassian's Australia's biggest tech company to date. I would have to look up the market cap, but it's listed on the NASDAQ, and it's in the tens of billions now. They're doing super well. But if you know their story, started with one product that gave birth to another, and they've just become basically Atlassian's the software you use to if you're building software. Okay. It's used by most of the the biggest tech companies in the world. It's definitely Australia's largest success story. But there's definitely some lessons in both the way they've scaled their execution and their commercial model, for sure.
Number 4, Carl, how to grow and scale a business?
Oh, look, I'm going to say hire good people. Entrepreneurship it's a team sport. Like, any founder that thinks that they're they might be the center of gravity within the company, but anyone that thinks they can get across the finish line is very mistaken. Your ability as an entrepreneur to create a shared vision and rally a team around you is basically one of those make or break skills you either have or you don't. But making sure those people around you, are accretive to completing the mission becomes super important.
It's so easier said than done, though. Good people. We hear this all the time. You say any business owner out in the street, what's your greatest challenge? It's attracting and retaining great people.
100%. And hopefully that's that's why we created Shortlister. Speaking about that company, and that's been designed so even a small business that doesn't have a lot of budget for to bring in some, say, external HR talent or recruiters, the first subscription there is free. So we wanted to make sure that people that need it the most can still get value from it. And obviously, as you grow, there's paid subscriptions as well. So there's a natural.
You stop flogging your investments, please. Number 5.
Hey, I'm passionate about solving the problem.
Correct.
I'm going to say, I say capital is oxygen. So basically, in any business you're doing, you're going to need to be capitalized. Now, you can either bootstrap it, reinvest all your profits back into the business and grow it that way. Otherwise, you're going to have to think about raising some capital from one of the various sources of doing so. But getting that balance right is also important. I can tell you some stories of when I lived in Silicon Valley, seeing some companies that raised monster rounds that basically died because they raised too much money.
Wow.
Because it's just, they weren't very what's the right word?
Frugal?
Frugal. Capital efficient is probably the technical term. They were spending money on things that they definitely shouldn't have spent money on, thinking that, we'll just raise another round. And to be honest, if you raise a big round at a big valuation and you don't live up to the growth hype, there won't be a second round.
No.
So I always say, that's why I like the oxygen analogy, because if you don't have any oxygen, you'll suffocate and die. But if you have too much, oxygen can actually, explode. So it's just getting that fuel mix right, so you can basically get up into orbit and, orbit the Earth with perpetual motion. But that balance becomes really important.
Just to finish, you spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley. You've spent a lot of time in that kind of crazy part of the world where excess and extravagance must just be, part of the day, part of walking along the street. anything any story you can tell, something you saw?
I've got one good story. So we were a Salesforce customer. I went to the Salesforce, conference, every year. And one year U2 was playing. And,
really?
At their party. I mean, the production value of this conference, measured in well into the millions. This is Dreamforce. And I went along, and would you believe there were some young kids in front of me, and they were on their phone. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're at the work party. Some Irish band is playing," and I was like, "Come on, doesn't everyone know U2? Isn't that one of those transgenerational bands?" But you scratch your head and saying, "Okay, there's some education to do because it's another world." But but it's amazing. They've had at some of their events, they've had U2, they've had Metallica. It's it's
that's big.
Yeah, they've just built this massive new skyscraper. I think that was $1 billion building.
Salesforce have?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of the biggest towers in the skyline now, just to house all their employees. But they're a super successful company, and they got the market cap to support it.
Why not?
All employees need a home, don't they?
Anything crazy? I mean, I just imagine the menus over at cafes and restaurants in Silicon Valley would just be ridiculous things on them and ridiculously priced, and the cars that are driving up and down the main drag are...
It's probably not as much as you think.
Right.
I mean, there are some places that have the $100 burger, but no, look, it's because the nature of it's probably one of my things you'll observe going to somewhere like San Francisco is the inequality of wealth is actually pretty massive. So the haves have a lot, and the have-nots have nothing. So you actually can get both extremes in a very short distance. So, and a lot of the really successful people, they keep a super low profile.
Yeah.
So, they might have billions of dollars, but they'll drive a Tesla, because it's electric, and two, because they don't stand out. And three, because a lot of the roads have potholes. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah. I had a buddy with a Maserati, and he only drove it a couple times a year because the rims can't take potholes.
Is he okay? Is he okay about that? I mean, if he needs to call me, just have a bit of a whinge. Hey, Carl, that's awesome, mate. Exciting stuff. You got some great business. Have you got a personal brand website or something people can find out? Just your LinkedIn or something, I suppose. Good. Shortlister, Lyres. Tamando's no good anymore. What's the wakeboard company?
Radin.
Yeah, Radin.
That one's fun.
What's the next one? Anything can you make an announcement right now?
The couple other companies I'm looking at, but I think I've founded enough, or co-founded enough with of primary projects for now. I'm also on a board of one in the UK, which is an AI cross-border platform. Does product classification, duties, and taxes. So,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, just e-commerce is one of my areas of interest because anything you can do to make global trade easier has a lot of economic benefit.
Awesome, buddy. Serial entrepreneur, evangelist, wakeboarder extraordinaire, Carl Hartmann. Thanks for joining us on the Small Business Big Marketing Show.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
What a guy. So many solid learnings from Carl. So many, in fact, that I had to drill it down to a top 3, which is pretty difficult. But here they are. Attention grabber number 1. Be an evangelist for your business. If you can't, then maybe it's time to reset your mindset or get out and do something differently. The fact that Carl feels like he needs to be able to evangelize everything about any business he gets involved with clearly is a key success factor for him. Attention grabber number 2. I really love Carl's generosity for giving back, whether it be through his adjunct professorship at Queensland University or simply allowing would-be entrepreneurs to pick his brain. It's just great to see people who have made it like Carl willing to give back. And I know I've seen him at work. He's a very generous guy. Attention grabber number 3, stay focused by avoiding rabbit holes. Putting 2 of his tips together there. Love this. Focus is everything. Rabbit holes are dangerous. You can break your ankle when you trip down a rabbit hole, but they also take your mind off the game. Big time. I'm a bit of a shocker for rabbit holes. They're a bit like bright, shiny objects. They sort of, they take your eye off the game, you lose focus, and the next thing you know is like, why isn't my business working as well as it should be? So staying focused, great tip. That's what grabbed my attention. Whatever grabbed yours, be sure to block out some time and implement it.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Oh, yes, indeedly doodly. It is that time of the show to reward a motivated listener for taking some serious marketing action as a result of listening to this show. Today's winner is Lane, haven't got a surname. I'll talk about that in a minute. Of trackabout.com.au, which are the manufacturers of off-road campers and trailers. Nice little business. Had a look at his website. Lane, well done, buddy. I'm about to read what Lane's done. But Lane, I've got a bone to pick with you. I have no idea what your surname is. There was nothing in the email signature. I went to trackabout.com.au, went to the About Us page. Not even a picture of you, mate. No surname. You don't mention yourself. Went to the Facebook for Trackabout. Nothing there. I just couldn't find her, mate. Personalise your business. It would be another tip that you could take from this show. Put a face to the name. Anyway, I'm being a bit harsh because Lane has taken some serious marketing action. Here's what he says. And I clear my throat as I'm about to read Lane's email. Hey, Timbo, I stumbled across your podcast about 2 months ago, and I believe in credit where credit's due. Too often, people will only reach out about the bad in life, but your podcast is killing it. Lane, thank you for that. As a result, you win lots of prizes. No, you've done more than that to win the prizes. But I agree. Reach out when people are doing good stuff, not just when you've got something to complain about. Lane goes on to say, I'm the son of a family business making top-quality Aussie-made camper trailers in a very tough environment with huge competitors and cheap, nasty imports. Every morning, how's this? I love this. I get up, I jump in the car, and I head to work 30 minutes early listening to your podcast. I get there, I write down every little idea that popped into my head in my little green book. I like the fact that you've got a journal going, Lane. I think maybe there should be a small business, big marketing journal that I can sell and make, get really rich so that every single listener has one. I like that idea. Do that. Maybe. It's like a Spyrex pad. Sell it for $50. And go back to Lane. And then do my job running production. Jump back in my car, listen to your podcast on the way home, get home, scribble more ideas down, and have a chat with my partner. She works in marketing herself about what you spoke about in the episode and what we can implement. Lane, you are a dedicated fan. I'm honoured to be awarding you some prizes. He goes on to say, thanks to you, I've got some really exciting, cheap and personalised online marketing ideas, including adding to our glowing Google reviews, increasing organic traffic to our website. We seem to go really well for a small business, through to blogs and customers sharing their story on video about our brand and product and the way they experience it. We also do an online video series called The Explore Life. Mate, you are smashing it, Lane. Anyway, he says, I've got to run. I've got plenty of work to do. Lane, trackabout.com.au. That is awesome. This is why I do the Monster Prize Draw. I love hearing what you guys get from this show and are implementing. It's all very well to listen to the show. I love that. But if I know you're implementing, that motivates me to do more. Lane, for your troubles, your efforts, here's what you've won. A full range of Lyre's non-alcoholic spirits. That's valued at over $500. A $50 Sendall voucher. $100 voucher to buy some undies from Tradies. $50 voucher to buy some PJs from Sant and Abel. Maybe they're for your wife. I don't reckon you'd be a PJ wearing kind of guy, Lane. $75 City Larder voucher. My DNA test kit valued at $99. $75 to use at snottynoses.com.au. $75 to use it on the go merchandise. You get promotion on this show, which I've already given you, plus a backlink in the show notes, which Google love. Thanks, Lane. Everyone else, send me an idea that you've implemented from listening to the show to tim@timreid, reid.com.au. 100 words or less. It's like, hey, Timbo, I listened to your show. I got this idea from it. I implemented it. And this is the impact it had on my business. See ya. That's all you got to do. And you win. That pretty much brings us to the end of episode 463. Hope you enjoyed it. A reminder that you'll find plenty more where this came from, plus my entire archive of episodes and blog posts can be found at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Next episode, we are going to catch up with the inventor of the round beach towel, which was only invented very recently. Like, what's that about? Why wasn't it invented like in 1952? If you're getting value from listening, then please let other business owners know about it. This podcast was presented by me, Timbo Reid. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. Now get out there and take action.